The atmosphere in the grand living room was tense. Angela paced back and forth, her face flushed with anger, while Lucas sat on the edge of the sofa, his hands gripping the armrest tightly. Mama Sandra reclined in her chair, sipping her tea, but her sharp eyes watched the unfolding drama. "I've been patient enough, Lucas," Angela snapped, her voice trembling with frustration. "Pella graduated at 18 with top honors, traveled the world, and gained experience in business and leadership. Yet, you still insist on holding him back. When will you hand over the reins of the company to him?" Lucas let out a weary sigh, his expression a mix of sadness and resolve. "Angela, I appreciate everything Pella has achieved. He's bright, capable, and has great potential. But running this empire isn't just about academics or travel experiences. It's about understanding the nuances, the risks, and the legacy. For now, he can work under me as the executive manager to learn the intricacies of the business. But he won't take over completely until I'm no longer here, until I'm dead." Angela's lips curled into a cold smile. "Then prepare yourself, Lucas, because if that's the condition, you might as well start writing your will. My son is ready, and I won't let you hold him back because of your outdated sense of tradition." Before Lucas could respond, Sandra shot up from her chair, her teacup clinking on the table. Her voice, though aged, carried the authority of decades. "Angela, have you lost your mind? This empire belongs to Pella, yes, but two pilots cannot fly the same plane. Lucas is still strong, still capable. Don't you dare let your ambition poison this family." Angela turned to her mother-in-law, her expression hardening. "Oh, please spare me the lecture, Sandra. Let's not pretend you didn't do the exact same thing. Your husband passed away when Lucas was just 30. If anyone here has experience in clearing the path for their son, it's you." She paused, smirking. "Who knows? Maybe you were too eager to see him take over." Sandra's face turned ashen, her hands trembling. "How dare you insinuate such a thing? My husband's death was an accident, and you know it. Don't you ever speak about things you don't understand." Angela stepped closer, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "Accident or opportunity, perhaps you're not as innocent as you like to portray yourself. And for the record, you've lived long enough. Maybe it's time you, too, make way for the next generation." Before the situation could escalate further, the door to the living room opened, and Pella walked in, his calm demeanor a sharp contrast to the storm brewing inside. He looked between his parents and grandmother, his brows furrowing in concern. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice steady but curious. Angela immediately turned to him, her tone softening. "Pella, your father refuses to hand over the company to you. He's stalling, and I won't allow him to waste your potential." Pella held up a hand, silencing her. "Mom, I've heard enough." He stepped forward, his gaze locking with Lucas's. "Dad, I know you're trying to teach me responsibility, and I respect that. I've thought a lot about this, and I've made my decision." The room fell silent, everyone waiting for his next words. "I don't need to take over the company right now," Pella continued, his voice firm. "I've realized that leadership isn't just about being in charge. It's about understanding every aspect of the business. That's why I want to start as the financial director. Mom encouraged me to study accounting, and I think it's time I use those skills to manage the financial side of the empire. You can remain CEO, Dad. I'll work under you and learn from you." Angela's eyes widened in disbelief. Pella, what are you saying? Are you not ready to lead? I am not ready, Pella said, turning to her. Let Dad continue as CEO for now. I'll earn my place when the time is right. Sandra, who had been quietly observing, smiled for the first time that evening. Now, that's wisdom, she said, her voice filled with approval. You've shown that true leadership is about patience and understanding. Your grandfather would have been proud. Lucas stood, walking over to Pella. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder, his eyes glistening with pride. Thank you, son. You've made the right choice. Together, we'll take this empire to greater heights. Angela, though reluctant, softened at the sight of the bond between father and son. Fine, she muttered, crossing her arms. But don't take too long, Lucas. Pella deserves his chance. 18 months later, Lucas sat in his opulent office, his face etched with worrying. The large executive desk was cluttered with papers and a laptop, and the faint hum of the air conditioner did little to cool the room. Beads of sweat trickled down his forehead as he scanned through the records on his computer screen. With frustration mounting, Lucas slammed his hand on the table and grabbed the desk phone. He pressed a button, summoning his receptionist. Moments later, she appeared in the doorway, her demeanor calm but curious. Sir, you called me, she asked, her tone polite. Yes, I did, Lucas replied, his voice sharp with agitation. Tell the office assistant to bring me all the transaction records from the past year, every single file. I need them here now. The receptionist hesitated, her brows furrowing. But sir, wouldn't that be overwhelming? All the records are already digitized on your system. You could. Lucas cut her off with a glare. Are you out of your mind? I don't have time for suggestions. Do as I say, right now. She nodded quickly and scurried out of the room. Within minutes, the office assistant arrived, struggling under the weight of several thick binders and files. He placed them on Lucas's desk, the stack teetering precariously. Lucas immediately dove into the files, flipping through pages with urgency. The room felt suffocating, and the stress of the moment caused him to tug at his agbada, tossing it onto a nearby chair. His shirt clung to his back as the sweat continued to pour. Just as he was reaching for another file, his phone buzzed loudly on the desk, the name Mama Sandra flashing on the screen. He picked it up with a groan. Hello, Mom, he said curtly. I'm busy right now. I'll call you back. Before she could respond, he ended the call and tossed the phone aside. Minutes later, the phone buzzed again. Lucas snatched it up, irritation evident in his tone. Who is it this time? The voice on the other end belonged to the head of security at his residence. Sir, I'm sorry to disturb you, but your presence is urgently needed at the house. Lucas's frustration boiled over. What now? I just told my mother to wait. Can't this wait too? No, sir, the security man replied, his voice firm. Some agents are here with official documents that require your immediate attention. They said it's critical, and if it's not addressed now, the consequences will be severe. They mention the possibility of us being evicted from the property. Lucas froze, his mind racing. Evicted. He echoed, his voice dropping to a whisper. He quickly collected himself and barked into the phone. Fine, I'm on my way. Make sure those agents don't leave until I get there. He ended the call, leaned back in his chair, and ran a hand through his hair. The weight of the moment pressed down on him. Grabbing his garment, Lucas stormed out of the office, leaving the piles of files and an air of unease behind. As he entered his car and sped toward his residence, his mind churned with thoughts. What could have gone so terribly wrong that it threatened his home and possibly his family? When Lucas arrived home, the tension in the air was palpable. The security guard directed him toward the living room, where 3 men in crisp suits sat waiting. Their calm demeanor only deepened his unease. Lucas stormed into the room, his face flushed with anger. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the house. "Why are you threatening me? What can I do for you?" One of the men, a composed individual named Mr. Dave, stood up and addressed him. "Mr. Lucas, this estate has been sold. The new owner has instructed that you vacate the premises within 24 hours to avoid further embarrassment." Lucas's eyes narrowed in disbelief. "Sold," he repeated, his tone incredulous. "Are you out of your mind? You must have the wrong address. This is my home. Get out of here before I call the police." Mr. Dave calmly opened his briefcase and pulled out a file. "I assure you, we are not mistaken. This is the correct address, and here are the documents to prove it. Please go through them and sign below to acknowledge receipt of the eviction notice." Lucas snatched the file from him, his hands trembling slightly. As he scanned the pages, his face turned pale and sweat beaded on his forehead. His breath quickened as the gravity of the situation became clear. "No, this can't be right," he muttered to himself, flipping through the pages. The names, dates, and details all seemed legitimate, yet the idea was incomprehensible. His hands began to shake visibly. Desperate, he grabbed his phone and dialed his son, Pella. The phone rang, but there was no answer. He tried again, and again. The result was the same. Frustrated, he slammed the phone onto the table and looked up at the men. "This is a scam," he shouted, his voice cracking. "I didn't sell this property, and I have no intention of doing so. This is my home, my family's home. I won't sign anything." The men exchanged knowing glances, their expressions unbothered by his outburst. Mr. Dave's voice was steady as he replied, "Sir, the sale has been finalized. Whether or not you sign the paperwork is no longer relevant. The legal transfer has been completed. You have less than 24 hours to vacate the property, or further action will be taken." Lucas's legs felt weak, and he sank into a nearby chair, his head spinning. How could this have happened? Who had orchestrated such a betrayal? His mind raced with questions, but the reality of the situation loomed large. The men stood, gathered their belongings, and prepared to leave. Before walking out, Mr. Dave turned back and added, "We recommend you begin packing immediately. Mr. Lucas, this matter is no longer negotiable." As soon as the men left, Lucas, still shaking with anger and confusion, made his way to his mother's room. He pushed the door open to find Sandra seated on the edge of her bed, her face drawn with weariness. "I didn't know you were around, Mom," Lucas began, his voice heavy. "I had some visitors earlier. They claimed the house has been sold. Do you know anything about this?" Sandra shook her head slowly, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't know the details, Lucas, but Angela gave me this letter for you a few hours ago." She reached over to her bedside table and handed him the envelope. "I've been trying to call you. Angela was insistent that she ride in the car we just had shipped in. When I refused, She nearly pushed me down the stairs." Lucas sighed deeply and rubbed his temples. "That woman will be the death of me, I swear. Sometimes I feel like leaving everything behind and going on vacation just to find some peace." He tore open the envelope. His brow furrowing, he unfolded the letter. As he read its contents, his face contorted in shock and disbelief. His hands began to tremble, and suddenly, his knees buckled. Lucas collapsed to the floor, clutching his chest. Sandra let out a piercing scream, her voice echoing through the house. "Help! Someone help!" she cried, rushing to her son's side. The household staff came running, and together they managed to lift Lucas and carry him to the car. They drove him to the nearest hospital, but the facility, overwhelmed with patients, refused to admit him. Sandra, panicked and desperate, instructed the driver to take them to the best private hospital in the city, one known for its international standards and state-of-the-art care. Upon arrival, Lucas was rushed into the emergency room. Sandra, her hands clasped tightly in prayer, sat outside the room, silently begging God to spare her son. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor emerged to inform her that Lucas was stable, but still very weak. He would NE. Relieved, but still anxious, Sandra took a seat by Lucas's bedside. She reached into her bag and pulled out the letter he had been reading before his collapse. Curiosity and concern gnawed at her as she carefully unfolded the paper. As her eyes scanned the contents, her expression shifted from confusion to horror. The letter revealed a shocking betrayal, one so devastating that it shook her to her core. Sandra gasped audibly, her hand flying to her chest. The room began to spin, and within moments, she slumped over in her chair. The nurses rushed in, alarms blaring, and Sandra was quickly transferred to another room for treatment. Both mother and son now lay in adjacent hospital rooms, their lives appended by the same letter. 3 days later, Lucas and Sandra were feeling better and ready to be discharged. Lucas, though still weak, sat upright in his hospital bed with his phone in hand, ready to make a transfer to settle the hospital bill. As he navigated through his bank app, his fingers froze, and his expression turned from calm to sheer panic. "What's wrong, Lucas?" Sandra asked from her bed, noticing the sudden change in his demeanor. Lucas's voice was shaky as he replied, "There's no money in my account, Mom. It's completely empty." Sandra's eyes widened in shock. "What? That can't be possible. Are you sure you're looking at the right account?" Lucas nodded, his hands trembling as he showed her the screen. "Every account has been wiped clean. I don't understand how this happened." The doctor attending to them entered the room, just as Lucas muttered, "I need to speak to someone about this." Turning to the doctor, Lucas said, "I'm sorry, but I need some time to raise the money for our bills. Is there any way? Help us." The doctor, a young man with a sympathetic expression, sighed. "I'm afraid I can't. I'm just an employee here, and I don't have the authority to make such decisions." As Lucas's shoulders slumped in despair, the door to the room opened, and a poised woman in her late 40s stepped in. She wore an elegant white coat, the owner of the hospital. Lucas immediately recognized her as the doctor who had been attending to them over the past few days. Dr. C. Henry smiled warmly. "I overheard your conversation. Mr. Lucas, I can arrange for you to settle the bill later, but there are conditions." Lucas's face lit up with relief. "Thank you so much, Doctor. What are the conditions?" Dr. C. Henry handed him a folder, You'll need to sign a promissory note stating that the full payment will be made within a stipulated time frame. We also require your passport and a valid form of identification as collateral. Once you've signed these documents, you'll be free to leave." Lucas nodded vigorously, his gratitude evident. "I'll do whatever it takes. Thank you for your kindness, Doctor. I promise I'll pay as soon as I raise the money." Sandra, sitting up in her bed, added, "Thank you, Dr. C. Henry. May God bless you for your understanding." Dr. C. Henry gave a reassuring smile. "You're welcome. Take care of yourselves, and let us know if you need anything else." As Lucas drove home, with Sandra beside him, the air in the car was thick with tension. Both were lost in their thoughts, replaying the events of the past few days. As they approached the gate of their estate, Lucas's grip on the steering wheel tightened, and his jaw clenched when he saw their luggage scattered outside the gate. Sandra let out a gasp, her hand flying to her chest. "What in the world is this?" Lucas parked the car abruptly and stepped out, his voice filled with rage as he said, "This is unacceptable. How can someone buy off my property without my consent? This beer has gone too far. I will sue them for every penny." Sandra stepped out slowly, her eyes welling up with tears. She looked at the familiar gate, now close to them, and at the belongings that represented all they had left. Shaking her head, she said, "Lucas, my heart aches. How did we get here? This was our home, our sanctuary." Lucas exhaled deeply, running a hand through his hair. "Mom, we'll fix this, I promise." Sandra sat on one of the suitcases, her trembling hands reaching for her purse. "I need to read that letter again," she said, pulling out the crumpled envelope Angela had left behind. She unfolded the letter carefully, her voice cracking as she began to read aloud.
"By the time you read this letter, my son Pella and I would have been far away beyond your reach. There's something you should know, Lucas. Pella is not your child. His biological father resides in the United States, which is why we often visited there. In fact, I have 2 other children with him, conceived during my 5-year course abroad. Pella, as the legal owner of your business empire and the estate, has decided to sell everything. He also emptied all the financial accounts he was a signatory to. Every asset you trusted him with is gone. I doubt our paths will ever cross again. Thank you for your love and for everything you gave me. Goodbye, Lucas. Maybe we'll meet again in another life. Angela, your maid."
As Sandra finished reading, her hands shook and the letter fluttered to the ground. Her tears flowed freely now, her voice trembling as she spoke. "How could she? After everything you gave her, Lucas. This betrayal is too much." Lucas's face was a mask of fury and devastation. "Mom, she played us from the very beginning." They stood by the gate for a moment, staring at the empty house that had once been their home, both sobs, tears flowing from their eyes. The courtroom was packed with spectators as Lucas and Sandra sat at their table, both visibly tense. The stakes were high, and every eye in the room was on them. On the opposing side, representatives of the company that had purchased Lucas's assets sat with their team of high-profile lawyers, exuding confidence. The magistrate, a beautiful woman of about late 30 with a sharp gaze, adjusted her glasses and addressed the court. After thoroughly reviewing the arguments presented by both parties, examining the investigation reports, and carefully evaluating the transaction documents. I am ready to deliver my verdict. Lucas straightened in his seat, his fists clenched on the table. Sandra gripped her handkerchief tightly, whispering silent prayers. The magistrate began, her voice steady and authoritative. Mr. Lucas, according to the evidence provided, it is clear that when your son, Pella, turned 18, you transferred full ownership of all your assets, including your business empire, estate, and bank accounts, both foreign and local, to him. This was done in accordance with your family tradition, as outlined in your family documents. Lucas's eyes widened in disbelief, but, Your Honor, that tradition was symbolic. I didn't intend for him to sell everything off. It wasn't meant to be permanent ownership. The magistrate raised a hand to silence him. Intentions aside, Mr. Lucas, the documents presented in court show that you gave your son complete legal authority over all your properties. The company that purchased these assets responded to an open advertisement and completed the transaction legally. There is no evidence of fraud or foul play on their part. Sandra let out a small gasp, her face pale. She whispered, Lucas, what have we done? The magistrate continued, Therefore, the court rules in favor of the company. I order you, Mr. Lucas, to stay clear of their path. Furthermore, due to the claims of assault filed by the company, you are required to pay the sum of 10 million naira in damages. Failure to do so will result in a 6-month prison sentence. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Lucas's head dropped into his hands, while Sandra burst into tears. Your Honor, please, she pleaded. We have no money left. Everything we had was taken. My son can't go to prison. He's all I have left. I beg you, show us mercy. The magistrate looked at Sandra with a sympathetic yet firm expression. Mrs. Sandra, the law must be upheld. However, I will give you a brief window to discuss with the company and reach a settlement. You have 10 minutes to negotiate. If an agreement is not reached, the court's decision will stand. Sandra turned to Lucas, her voice trembling. Lucas, the only thing we have left is my personal house. I'm willing to give it up for you. Please, let me do this. I can't bear to see you behind bars. No, Mom, Lucas said, his voice heavy with guilt. I've already cost us too much. I can't let you lose your home too. No, Mom, Lucas said, his voice heavy with guilt. I've already cost us too much. I can't let you lose your home too. Tears streaming down her face, Sandra said, We'll figure something out. But I need to protect you. Please let me do this. As they whispered urgently, the company's lead representative approached them. We're willing to settle this matter amicably, he said. We don't want to prolong this any further. We will accept the house and waive the 10 million naira penalty. Lucas hesitated, but the sight of his mother's tear-streaked face broke his resolve. Fine, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. We'll give you the house. The magistrate watched as both parties came to an agreement. After the necessary paperwork was signed, he banged his gavel. The case is settled. Court adjourned. As Lucas and Sandra walked out of the courtroom, they felt the weight of their loss pressing down on them. Sandra took Lucas's hand, her voice soft but firm. We have no place to go anymore. What should we do? Lucas, shaking his head, responded, I have no idea, Mom. Some of friends have stopped picking my calls as well. Sandra, wiping away tears, turned to Lucas. We need shelter. even if just temporarily. There's a new foundation in town that provides support for the homeless and elderly. Maybe they can help us." Luca sighed, exhausted but determined to support his mother. "Let's go, Mom. We have nothing to lose." They arrived at the foundation, a large, modern building bustling with activity. The receptionist greeted them kindly, handing them forms to fill out. As Lucas finished signing, the atmosphere in the room suddenly changed. The doors swung open, and a commanding figure walked in. It was the owner of the foundation. The room fell silent, and everyone stood to greet her, bowing slightly out of respect. Lucas looked up and froze. His eyes widened in shock. "Olivia, is that you?" The woman turned her gaze to them, a small, satisfied smile playing on her lips. "Lucas, Mama Sandra, what a surprise. What brings you here?" Sandra stepped forward hesitantly, her voice shaky. "Olivia, we're in desperate need. We lost everything. Our home, our business, everything. Please, we just need a place to stay for a week while we figure out our next steps." Olivia crossed her arms, her expression turning cold. "You want my help? After everything you put me and my daughters through, the humiliation, the pain. Both of you cast me out while you allowed my maid. Angela and her son took everything from me. And now you dare come to me for shelter." "Olivia, please," Sandra begged, clasping her hands together. "I know we wronged you. I know we failed you. But my son and I are broken, and we have nowhere else to go. Just a week, that's all we ask." Olivia sneered, her voice dripping with bitterness. "Get out. Get out of my foundation, my life, and my sight. I don't want to see either of you here ever again." Lucas tried to reason with her. "Olivia, please listen. We're not asking for charity, just time to get back on our feet." But Olivia pointed to the door. "Leave, now." Crushed, Lucas and Sandra turned to leave. As they reached the door, another familiar voice called out, "Lucas, Sandra." They turned to see Dr. C. Henry, the owner of the hospital, where they had been treated. She approached them briskly, her tone sharp. "I was told you came here. When exactly do you plan to pay the outstanding hospital bills? You're already 48 hours past the deadline." Lucas's shoulder slumped, and he clasped his hands together in a plea. "Dr. Henry, I'm still trying to raise the money. Please, just give me a little more time." Dr. Henry frowned. "Lucas, I've been patient, but this is a business, not a charity. You need to settle your debt." Sandra stepped forward, desperation in her voice. "Dr. Henry, could we at least stay at the hospital for a couple of days? We'll find a way to pay and figure out our living situation." Dr. Henry shook her head firmly. "I'm sorry, Sandra. I'm running a hospital, not a shelter. There are abandoned buildings in the city where you can stay if you're truly desperate, but I can't allow you to stay at the hospital." As Lucas and Sandra were about to step into the streets, Olivia's sharp voice halted them in their tracks. "Please, come back. There's something we need to discuss," she said firmly. One of Olivia's staff guided them to her office. Inside, four elegantly dressed women sat with an air of confidence. Their beauty and poise were undeniable. Lucas and Sandra exchanged confused glances as Olivia cleared her throat. "It wouldn't be fair," Olivia began, "if I didn't allow you to meet your daughters. After all, they are your biological children." Sandra scoffed, crossing her arms. Yes, they are our blood and flesh, but girl children have nothing to offer. They're a burden, she muttered under her breath. Olivia smiled knowingly. Perhaps you've underestimated them. All 4 of your daughters are not only successful, but have played vital roles in your life when you needed help the most. Lucas raised an eyebrow, his voice filled with skepticism. Vital roles? I haven't seen or heard from them since you left my house. Olivia's expression hardened. Correction. We didn't leave your house, you cast us out. Sandra, growing impatient, waved her hand dismissively. Enough of this back and forth. If they're here, ask them to come in. I need to see them. Olivia leaned back in her chair and gestured to one of the women. Dr. C. Henry, your eldest daughter, is sitting right in front of you. Sandra turned to the poised woman in disbelief. You mean the owner of the hospital that saved our lives when we were rejected by other hospitals? You're Clara. Her voice wavered as she stared at the woman, trying to recognize her features. The woman, calm and collected, nodded. Yes, Mama, I am Clara, the little girl you dismissed as a burden. Lucas swallowed hard, his voice trembling. You saved us. Thank you so much. I don't know how to express my gratitude. Clara's piercing gaze didn't waver. I only did my job. It was my professional responsibility as a doctor to treat you, and I would have done the same for anyone else in your position. She paused, her tone sharp and unforgiving. But let me be clear. I will get the money owed to me. My kindness doesn't negate your debt. Sandra's lips trembled as tears rolled down her cheeks. Clara, my beautiful granddaughter, I am so proud of you. Please, don't hold grudges. We were wrong. I see that now. Clara's expression softened momentarily, but her voice remained firm. Mama Sandra, I hold no grudges. I've long since moved on. But life has taught me that actions have consequences, and that I won't overlook. As Lucas and Sandra stood frozen in the room, Olivia's voice cut through the tension. I know you won't immediately recognize Eva, she said, turning to one of the women seated elegantly. She has changed her dressing after the court sitting. Eva is the magistrate who presided over your court case. Lucas staggered backward, his eyes wide with disbelief. You mean, my daughter was the one who ruled against me in court? The one who sided with those who took everything I've ever worked for? His voice cracked, and tears began to stream down his face. Eva, composed and unflinching, spoke firmly. Yes, Papa, I was the magistrate. But understand this, I did not side with anyone. I merely upheld the law. The evidence presented was clear, and my duty is to the justice system, not to personal ties. Sandra's hands trembled as she clasped them tightly. Do you realize what you've done, Eva? My late husband worked his entire life to build that empire, and now it's gone. Just imagine how easily it was taken from us, all because of you. Eva's tone remained measured, but resolute. Mama Sandra, I understand your pain, but I only did my job according to the laws of this country. If you feel the decision was unjust, you were free to appeal. Lucas shook his head, his voice barely above a whisper. Eva, you're my child. Eva's gaze softened momentarily as she nodded. Yes, Papa, I am. But my role as a magistrate required me to set personal feelings aside. I didn't make the laws, I only enforced them. The room fell silent for a moment before Olivia spoke again. And now, Let me introduce you to Lily." She gestured to another poised woman. "Lily is the owner of your glassy property. Her company was responsible for linking the beer to your estate and business empire." Sandra's eyes widened in shock. "Lily, you're the architect of our downfall. How could you do this to us, your family?" Her voice cracked with despair as she stared at the woman who now held her fate in her hands. Lily, calm and unapologetic, met her gaze. "Mama Sandra, it's nothing personal. If I hadn't connected the beer, someone else would have. It was a business opportunity, a huge transaction, and I wasn't going to let it slip through my fingers." Sandra's chest rose and fell heavily, her anger boiling over. "How dare you? You prioritized money over family. You sold us out for profit." Lily gave a small, almost indifferent smile. "Which family are we even talking about?" Anyway, the estate was on the market, and I simply did what my company does, connect sellers with buyers. That's all there is to it." As Lucas and Sandra stood frozen in disbelief, Olivia cleared her throat, signaling she wasn't finished. "I also want to introduce you to Owen," she said, her voice filled with pride. "Owen is my daughter, who decided to become the man of the house after we left your home. She vowed never to fully embrace her gender identity until she proved herself as strong as any son could have been. And she did just that. Owen is the owner of our Anita International, one of the largest multinational corporations today." Sandra's eyes narrowed suspiciously as she and Lucas exchanged uneasy glances. "Don't tell me," Lucas began, his voice trembling. "Are you the one who bought all my properties, my estates, my business empire? Are you the one who left me homeless and jobless?" Owen leaned back in her chair, her posture emphasizing her commanding presence. She nodded with a calm smile. "Yes, I am. When I saw the advertisement, I was surprised at first, but Lily confirmed to me that it was genuine. So, I seized the opportunity and bought everything, paid in full without hesitation." Sandra's jaw dropped, her voice rising in fury. "You knew those properties belonged to your father, and you still bought them. How could you? That's too bad." Owen's smile turned cold. "Too bad," she repeated, her tone biting. "What exactly was bad?" "Casting us out of your house wasn't bad. Mocking my mother for not giving you a male child. Treating us as worthless because we're women. Let me remind you, Sandra, the gender of a child is determined by the father, not the mother. The same biology you never bothered to learn condemned us to suffering, while you gloated in your ignorance." Lucas remained silent, his head bowed in shame, as Sandra's face contorted with rage. "I don't care about biology or your excuses. This is still my property, and over my dead body will I allow you or your mother to step foot in any of it. I will see to it that you, Olivia, and all your accomplices are arrested for fraud and theft." Owen's calm demeanor broke into a bitter laugh. "Fraud, theft, the transactions were all legal, Sandra. The documents bear your heir's signature, your grandson, not mine. If you want to arrest someone, maybe start with yourself for pushing your son into this mess. The estate and the empire now belong to my mother, Olivia. I bought them as a gift for her upcoming birthday in 3 weeks." Sandra shot up from her seat, her voice shaking with rage. "You think I'll let this happen? Never. Over my dead body," I said. Lucas suddenly raised his hand, silencing her. His voice, low and laden with regret, broke through the tension. Enough, Mama. I won't let you drag me into this anymore. Don't you see? You're the reason we're in this pit. Your obsession with control, your disdain for Olivia and her daughters, and your blindness to Angela's schemes, all of it led us here. I've failed as a man, as a husband, and as a father because I was too weak to stand up to you. His voice cracked, and tears streamed down his face. And now, this is where it ends. Olivia, her expression softened with a mixture of vindication and pity, turned to Owen. You've done more than enough, my child, she said gently. You've shown your strength and proved yourself beyond any doubt. Now, I want you to embrace your life fully. Be the person you were meant to be, not the one you felt you had to become for my sake. Owen's stoic exterior wavered, and for a moment, tears glistened in her eyes. Thank you, Mom. I can now live as a woman. My mission is accomplished. Lucas dropped to his knees, his pride shattered beyond repair. Please, he begged, his voice desperate. At least give me a job. Let me work for you. I'll do anything. Sweep the floors, clean the offices. Just give me a place to stay. Owen looked down at him, her face a mask of indifference. Before she could speak, Dr. C. Henry, now fully composed, interjected. We don't owe you anything, Lucas. The same way you watched us walk into the streets with nothing, we'll watch you do the same. You reap what you sow. The four daughters nodded in agreement, their expressions resolute. We've moved on, Lily said coldly. You should, too. Sandra slumped back into her chair, stunned into silence as Lucas's pleas filled the room. But the daughters stood firm, their resolve unshaken. Olivia, satisfied with the justice that had unfolded, turned away, her face unreadable, as she walked out of the office. As Eva's phone buzzed, she answered immediately, her tone professional but tense. Hello, Matthew. What's the update? Madam, came the voice of her trusted informant. Angela and Pella were scheduled to catch a flight this morning, but they were involved in a serious accident on the way to the airport. Both were rushed to Good Impulse Hospital, and their condition is critical. Eva sighed deeply, her expression unreadable. All right. I'll be there shortly. She hung up and sat quietly for a moment before informing her family of the situation. The next day, the atmosphere at Good Impulse Hospital was thick with tension. Lucas, Sandra, Olivia, and her four daughters were all present, standing silently in the hospital corridor. The faint sound of Angela's groans and the occasional beeping of medical monitors echoed from the room ahead. The doctor finally stepped out, his face grave. Angela's legs are severely damaged, he began. To save her life, we need to amputate them immediately. As for Pella, the accident has caused a severe spinal cord injury. He is paralyzed from the waist down and may never walk again. The room was silent as the news sank in. Sandra gasped, holding her chest, while Lucas stood frozen. Olivia's daughters exchanged glances, but remained stoic. Inside the room, Angela lay on the hospital bed, her face pale and streaked with tears. Pella was on the adjacent bed, unconscious, with a brace supporting his neck. Angela reached out weakly as Olivia entered the room, followed by the others. Please, Angela whispered, her voice hoarse. I'm begging all of you. Forgive me for everything I've done. Olivia stepped closer, her expression cold, but composed. Forgive you, she repeated, her voice sharp. Angela, I thought I had done the worst in disguising my daughter as a son just to save my marriage. I lived with guilt for years, believing I had failed my children by playing into a system that devalued them. But you, she shook her head in disbelief. You are the real criminal. You orchestrated everything, lying, manipulating, and destroying lives for your gain. You tore apart a family and left them in ruins. I don't want to see any of you around me ever again. With that, Olivia and her daughters walked out of the room.
Hello, besties. What are your takeaways from this story? Please share them with us in the comments section. We'd love to hear your thoughts. There are even more interesting stories waiting for you on this channel. Check the description below for the links to those videos. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and become part of our amazing community.
Thank you so much for watching. God bless you all. I love you.